Hello, everybody. Welcome to another YouTube Live, another weekly live where we have our nutrition chats. Today it's just me. I am here on my own, and that's absolutely fine. We have a beautiful client Q&A lined up where it's all about all things weight loss. We're going to talk about what rate of weight loss to expect, what to do when you hit a weight loss plateau, and all these things. So hopefully there's something in there for you. And if for any future Q&As you also have a question that you'd like me to address, please feel free to send it through, not just here in the comments, but whenever or through whatever social media form you like. It can be even on Instagram or our website, however you like. On our website, we also have our email. So yeah, feel free. I'm going to wait for a few more people to pop up here to come in and listen in live. Of course, some of you might be watching the replay as well, but I'm still going to share a little bit about my day. I am still over here in Germany at the moment. We are actually having lovely weather, which if you have been listening to any of our previous live chats, is not necessarily given because, for instance, in May and June, there were a ton of floodings and just a bunch of rain and like 50 degrees and just absolutely miserable weather. But for the last, probably a couple of weeks, actually, we've had lovely weather, sort of 80s, 90s. So that's more my jam. I'm absolutely a summer person. But aside from that, over here, already had a lovely day, did a bunch of work in the morning, just new client. I actually had a new client chat before jumping on here. Super, super excited to work with her. She is actually just trying to get pregnant. At the same time, though, still battling with weight from baby weight number one. But nonetheless, there is no time like the present to start working on your health, especially also in regards to having healthy pregnancies or mitigating weight gain throughout a pregnancy, etc. Of course, our main objective is always to keep baby healthy and happy, but nonetheless, one of her targets is also to be consistent with her workouts as much as her body allows her to throughout the pregnancy and so on. Like lots of exciting things to be working on. So if you're listening to this and you think like, oh, I'm not in an ideal state to be focusing on nutrition, there is no correct time. Perimenopause, menopause, pre-pregnancy, post-pregnancy, whatever, you should always be a priority, because only if you're feeling good in your own body, you can take the best care of those around you, including the baby that's growing within you or your family that you might already have. So, but in any case, what else? I met up with a good friend for lunch. She's actually, I've been friends with her since we were in preschool, or no, not preschool, elementary school, primary school. And so basically for, like close to 25 years, a long time, or over 25 years, Jesus. Anyway, it's always lovely catching up with people like that. We met up at a Thai restaurant. No, actually, it was Asian fusion. I love som tam. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with Asian cuisine, but som tam is a papaya salad with prawns, and it's kind of sweet and spicy at the same time with peanuts. Delicious. So that's another thing that we work a lot on with our clients, which is how to stay consistent even when you're eating out a lot, even when you're traveling a lot, even when you like to be social and so on, because we often think that, hey, people do the best when they're just 100% preparing their own meals and so on, or you might even or you may have followed a meal plan in the past, and only when you were preparing your own meals in according to your meal plan did you feel like you were consistent. But then when you were eating out, in your mind it was like, I'm off my diet, or you're on your diet. And so we don't want that. We really, really, really want to encourage with our clients that they learn, how can I still be on track even when I'm eating out, when I'm going to a birthday, all these sorts of things. So something I would love to teach you if you're coming on board with nutrition coaching in life. But anyway, let's get into this week's client Q&A. Like I said, specifically, it is a weight loss Q&A, so it pertains to all things how to lose weight. And when I say weight loss, I mean fat loss specifically, because it is one thing to lose weight, which also means oftentimes lean body mass that we don't want to lose because otherwise you just end up as a weaker, smaller version of yourself, still kind of looking skinny fat. Or when we're saying losing fat, we're maintaining or even building lean body mass and therefore actually also ending up with a higher or better metabolism afterwards than beforehand. So anyways, let's get into it. So the first question I want to address is, how fast of a rate of weight loss can I expect? So, of course, as so often, the answer here is it depends. But generally speaking, especially if I have strategy calls, taking on new clients, I like to say we don't really aim for more than about a pound per week. A reason being, oftentimes when we are more aggressive or when we are dropping calories below that in order to see a bigger drop, um, it also bounces back quicker. This really depends though. If you have a lot more to lose, let's just say you're a female, 200 pounds and upwards, we can probably go a bit more aggressive. And, especially initially, it might be perfectly fine to see 2, 3 pounds of a drop. Also, particularly because in those initial stages, if your diet right now is, a lot of processed foods and so on, um, then just by cleaning things up more, you're going to drop a bunch of water weight. Or if we're reducing overall carbs, which is quite likely, you're going to drop a bunch of water weight. Again, that's kind of stabilizing out after a couple of weeks normally. But overall speaking, of course, also if you are a leaner person and you're already super close to your goal weight, those last 5, maybe 10 pounds are gonna be tougher. And you're probably going to lose more at a rate of maybe half a pound or so per week. And much of this, or almost all of this, also depends on your adherence. So I always need to say that because, of course, if I say to you, hey, you're going to drop 1 pound per week, and then you're really only tracking for like 4 or 5 days a week, and 2, 3 days, you're kind of going off the rails, and we're not really dropping anything at all, you can't really be frustrated because in the end, you're not following the plan consistently. So, of course, that plays a very, very big role. The other thing that plays a big role is dieting history. So, for instance, I am working with a client at the moment. She's absolutely crushing it. She's actually postnatal. So, she gave birth maybe a year and a half ago. We're still dropping some of the baby weight, but also just in general, she has been at maintenance or in a small surplus for quite some time leading up to the pregnancy and even before that, really kind of focusing on muscle gain. So she, has been nourishing her body very well for a good amount of time. So now we said, okay, your body is ready. You're in a super stage right now to be dropping at a good rate. And we were aiming, we talked about this, roughly about a pound per week. Still, let's do this. And she actually, especially initially, dropped like 2, 3 pounds, and we're 11 weeks into our diet and she dropped 11 pounds. So that is just to tell you that if your body is well prepared for a dieting phase, you're going to drop much more easily than, let's just say, if you are coming from a place where you were only maintaining your caloric intake at maybe 3 months or even less, or even worst case, you have been dieting for years and years and years, and on after one after the other. Your metabolism is going to be much more compromised, and therefore we may not even be able to start with a weight loss phase and might have to go into a reverse diet or maintenance first before then attempting to cut. And then also with that, it's not to say, or it's hard to say, or almost impossible to say at what point, how long after a maintenance phase your body then lets you drop. So as you can see, the answer is not very clear in the sense of how much, but generally speaking, for a long time, we used to think, okay, if we want to lose 1 pound per week, we need to go into a 500 calorie deficit because hypothetically, a pound of fat burns, or you need 3,000, is worth 3,500 calories. So divide that by 7 days of the week. That would mean 500 calories per day in terms of energy would equate to a pound of fat per week. again, this can't be stated or used as a blank statement because it also depends on how tall you are, male, female, and like I said, current level of body fat. But just generally speaking, that used to be like a rough sort of guideline. So yeah, if you are aiming to drop a pound of fat per week, you can put yourself into something like a 400 or 500 calorie deficit and see how you get on with that. Sometimes not as you can start with a smaller deficit. For some larger individuals, a bigger calorie deficit could also be feasible. So it really kind of depends. So hopefully I answered this first question. How fast of a rate of weight loss can I expect? Usually that is something that we do clarify with our clients as we start them off. This question came from someone off of Instagram that we're not working with yet. So hopefully this question, person, whoever, uh, convinced you to get some guidance as well. Then question number 2, can I lose weight without exercising? I'm going to cut right to the chase. And yes, you absolutely can. Again, I'm going to bring a client example. I am going to call her Clara just to protect her her privacy. So I started working with her actually in January. She is in menopause or post. No, she's not postmenopause yet. She hasn't had a period for maybe 8 months or so, has had several perimenopause symptoms over the previous years and so on. So, it's in those kind of years, and she used to think, I can't lose weight at all. Something is wrong with my hormones and so on. And actually, it turned out, yes, she can lose weight and even without exercise. Initially, we were planning to get her on a 3-day strength training program and also aiming to do steps. However, currently, because of her work, and she is just, it's not a priority to her right now. She is not wanting to exercise. And I said, hey, that is fine. Let's just focus on nutrition, focus on your steps, focus on your sleep, and doing everything else that we can in order to support your perimenopause or menopausal transition, which I'm going to get into in another client question later on. And we can still achieve weight loss. And lo and behold, we have lost 9 kilos, so about 20 pounds so far, especially visceral fat. And it just, you can create a calorie deficit either through nutrition or training or a combination of both, but it is absolutely possible. Of course, it can be very helpful in the sense of just biomarkers, satiation, and so on, to have that combination, but it's not always a must. Something is better than nothing. Question number 3. What should I do if I hit a plateau? So, first thing I'm going to say is we actually have a really great freebie on this. It's called, yeah, weight loss stagnation freebie, or seven steps. So like a cheat sheet, not a cheat sheet, yeah, a cheat sheet that you can work through to determine why your weight loss might be stagnating. So if you're interested in that, drop me a comment. I'm going to send it to you. And otherwise, you can also head out over to our website, nutritioncoachingandlife.com, where we have a freebie tab and you can just download it directly there. But anyway, there are several points to go through, some of which are specifically the first ones are, have you really hit a plateau? Like, have you looked at your weekly average? Is that actually stagnating? Or are you just basing this assumption on a once a week weigh in that we really can't take at face value because we need to account for daily weight fluctuations depending on your sodium intake, depending on inflammation, your sleep, your training, all these kinds of things. So if we're only weighing in once a week, it's really not an accurate snapshot of what's happening. So make sure you're accounting for that. And also, I would say if it's just been stagnating for 1 week, then that doesn't count as a plateau. Instead, if it's stagnating for 2 weeks, maybe, but more like 3 or 4 weeks. Of course, if you're in a contest prep or whatever, that's a different story. But for our Gen Pop clients, which we tend to work with more, yeah, it's really like a bit of a bigger picture here. So the next question you should think of is, have I really been consistent? Have I really been accurate? Because oftentimes it's like those little extra bites and licks that we're forgetting, or we maybe for a week or two we haven't actually weighed things out very accurately, and we were eating out a lot more and maybe just, missing things here and there, which could also mean you really were not following that closely to your calorie prescription. Another thing could be that if you were sick, or if you had an extra high stress load at work, or if you had a lot of emotional stress, also, which we sometimes don't account for when it comes to how that's affecting our weight, or again, sleep, or you might have been traveling. There are so many things we need to make sure we're actually going through first before making any alterations to our calories. So make sure you check those. And again, like, have you been consistent with that? And be honest with yourself about that as well. That is where having a coach can come in super helpful. Just, getting that external vision and at everything and taking the bigger picture. And then also considering what else is happening with your body. Are you still recomping? So, maybe getting more muscle, losing fat. That's where measurements and pictures can come in really, really handy. But yes, going through all of that before you decide, okay, we're going to make an adjustment to our calories. Most of the time, a small adjustment might even do of like 5% of your overall calories, reducing through carbs or fats. Protein is always going to stay the same. And depending on personal preference, you can drop fats or carbs, but some of it is also going to depend on how active you are. If you're really trying to still maximize muscle gain, you might just want to drop through fats. However, if your fats are already at the lower limit, we don't want to drop them too low in order to keep your hormones healthy. So just consider that before you're making adjustments. You could, of course, also just add a little bit more cardio. You don't need to do both. I would start with one or the other so that you know that which adjustment has really made a difference or hasn't, and leaving something in the tank. So we want to make the minimum amount of adjustment that we need to, and not like, oh, let's reduce another 500 calories. That's just not necessary for most people anyway. But yes, hopefully that answers the question of what should I do if I hit a plateau. Fourth question, am I doing it wrong if I gain weight during a reverse diet? This is a great question because actually, I feel like the myth has gotten out there that people should actually always lose weight in a reverse diet. Absolutely not the case. That can happen. That is maybe 10% of the time. But as I've said before on here as well, and I'm going to repeat it because I really think this can't be understated, we should have several different words for what a reverse diet actually is. Is it a reverse diet at the end of a successful dieting phase where we're just wanting to transition into a maintenance phase? Or is it a reverse diet because uh, you have been dieting for years on end, and we need to restore your metabolic health before then going back into a cut because your actual goal is still weight loss? Or is it a reverse diet at the end of your contest prep, at the end of a photo shoot, or because we know you're too lean and you actually need to gain some body fat, which some people call that a recovery diet, but still amongst normal people's talk, it's still often referred to as a reverse diet. And those three are so different. Obviously, in that last one, as I already alluded to, we do want to slash need you to gain a little bit of body fat so that you're getting your period again, so that you're feeling better, so that your metabolism is restored, all that stuff, because we cannot expect to be stage lean all year around. Lifestyle lean, yes, for most people. Again, this is going to depend on your dieting history as well, but particularly if you have been dieting and dieting and dieting and dieting, not showing your body any love, you might actually need to gain a little bit of body fat for some time before then going back to a place where you feel more comfortable in terms of body fat percentage, however, still not super lean. Now, to answer that question more specifically, though, am I doing it wrong if I gain weight during a reverse diet? Let us assume that you have reached your goal weight at a still healthy body fat percentage, not super, super low, and you want to now just go to maintenance, you're not doing it wrong, but we don't necessarily want to slash need you to gain weight during a reverse diet. So the goal is still to keep that fat gain slash weight gain very minimal during the reverse diet. What it could indicate if you are gaining weight during a reverse diet is firstly, and that is unfortunately the most common one, is that we're starting to get inaccurate and inconsistent. I do have to say it just straight out of the bat like that, because unfortunately, often we are so focused and excited that we have reached our target in our dieting phase, and we're often very dialed in and prepping our meals in a dieting phase, and then we get to the goal and we're like, oh, I've reached my goal, and we lose that accuracy because we are already at the target and we feel like this is now the time to be a bit more free and not to be quite as dialed in, when in fact during a reverse diet we should be just as, if not more, accurate as during a cut. Maintenance, once we've established maintenance, this is when we can slowly reduce the amount of times that we weigh things out, or slowly reduce or eat out more often, or even become a little bit more intuitive with our eating. Yes. However, not during a reverse diet. So I do really, really, really want to bring that point home, because it pains me to see the amount of um, work clients go through in a dieting phase just to then sometimes lose it in a reverse diet after having done all of that. Yeah, it's really, really painful. So let's not do that. Please hang on for a few more weeks until you get to your maintenance phase. Of course, the other reason why you might gain weight during a reverse diet might actually be that you have overshot your actual maintenance calories. So meaning maybe you're trying to work up to the amount of calories that you had before your diet, so at your previous weight, and you're somehow assuming that your new maintenance is going to be the same as before. It is not. Your body is lighter, is weighs less, is a lot less mass, and therefore it requires less energy to be moved around. So just consider that. And also, if you're simply basing your new or general maintenance calories at something that a calorie online calorie calculator tells you, just keep in mind that they're not always super accurate. And for whatever reason, your actual maintenance might be lower. That might be painful to hear, because we always want to eat as much as possible. Of course, everyone does. But yet, just consider that as well. The other last thing I will say in regards to this question is, do consider that every time you bring your calories up a smidgen, um, you are going most likely to add a bit of carbs, which is initially going to bind to more water. And therefore, if you just think, oh, your weight jumps after you have made an increase, it might also just be water gain. Give that a little bit of time, a week or two, to see if it balances out, and your body might drop back down to what it was prior to that. Or again, make sure that you are actually looking at the weekly average as opposed to just one snapshot, because you might have caught your weight or your body at a place after a very hard training session, when often weight is up, or when even when you have been sick, or you were sick, or you're taking any medication, or it's your ovulation time and you're thinking, oh no, my weight is up, but it's actually not actual fat gain, so to speak. So yeah, hopefully that's helpful in regards to the reverse diet. I think we have time for one more question. I actually have several more lined up, but I don't think we can actually go through. Which one am I going to choose? Looking at my list right here. Oh, okay. I said I was going to talk about the menopause, and there is one question in there. What in your approach changes for women in perimenopause and menopause? Great question, especially because I feel like we have more and more women in that age bracket actually coming to us, and some of our coaches are kind of going through some of perimenopausal symptoms themselves. Allison, for instance, she is postmenopause, and she has read and learned a lot about that transition phase, and there are some great podcasts out there. More and more information is just being disseminated as it pertains to perimenopause, and I love that it's no longer like a taboo topic or where you feel like you're the only one who's affected by that. So yes, really, really great point. And the first thing I really do need to say is that we can still achieve a lot of physical success and changes in a positive way during that phase. I think often or too often women think that it's not worth trying anything during that time because your hormones are going to wreak havoc anyway, or um, you can't gain any muscle during that time because they heard that here and there, or they see it amongst their friends. So let me just say that the overall basics still really apply during that time, in the sense of if you do the right training program consistently, if you are consistent with the right nutrition, and if you are focusing on the basics like sleep and stress management and so on, you are going to still achieve a lot and really going to minimize your system during that time. Is that still gonna be very dependent from person to person? Of course. So what are some of the additional things on top of the basics that I just mentioned that we can do is, like, what is the right training? So kind of defining that a bit more. And, again, there's more and more research coming out about that, that strength training per se is really so beneficial, and not in that, like, moderate state type of, like, I'm doing a body pump kind of class, but really heavy lifting where we're progressively overloading, going for strength in particular, in combination with some endurance training, but not, again, not in that moderate sort of continuous stage. Yes, you want to get your steps in for sure, but not that kind of like jogging type stuff. More in the sense of higher intensity interval training. So like assault bike sprints, for instance, or even also more stressful things that's not necessarily pertain to the high intensity interval training, but things like jump training, so skipping rope and so on, where you are putting pressure through body weight on your joints and strengthening your bones that way. So that is again something that is showing to be very, very beneficial during that time. And now, like defining the right nutrition, consuming sufficient protein is probably one of the biggest things where women in general, but specifically also perimenopausal, menopausal women really fall short on average. And I mean, this is very broadly speaking. Uh, in that age bracket, we should be consuming about 150 grams of protein. Your body can only benefit from that, of course, given that calories are also in a good place, but from having that amount of protein in your diet. And we also want to make sure we're not in a hyper, so like really overeating stage of caloric stage, or hypocaloric stage all the time where we're under eating all the time, because that adds extra stress to our body as well. So those are that broad framework. Apart from that, though, we really want to support our liver, for the reason that our liver is the organ that also helps us adjust or regulate the hormones that we have in our body. It's because it is helping us clean out the hormones that are in excess. For instance, if we're having an excess of um, estrogen, which I mean, I know it drops during perimenopause and menopause, but in general, it helps us balance things out. So we really, really want to help make sure that we're supporting our liver. What can we do to do so? We can consume cruciferous vegetables. We can limit alcohol intake. We can just overall try to have a whole food based diet with minimally processed things. So those are really the biggest things. And obviously, they're not too different from what I would recommend someone my age or someone in their 70s or whatever. But specifically the liver friendly things, the limiting the alcohol and so on, just become even more important during that time again, because there are just more hormonal fluctuations. So I'm gonna save the other questions for a future Q&A because they are just too good to rush through. I hope you enjoyed learning about what rate of weight loss you can expect, how you can lose weight without it. Oh, no, again, how fast of a rate of weight loss you can expect, if you can lose weight without exercising, what you should do if you've hit a weight loss plateau, the answer to the question if you're doing it wrong, if you gain weight during a reverse diet, and also what approaches change, if any, for women in perimenopause or menopause. Please drop me any comments below if you have any questions about this. I love chatting about that. I even just love connecting with you guys. So thank you so much for listening in, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Speak to you next time.